If you're ever driving through Oregon's Cascade Mountains, and you see a sign that says Mile 13, don't stop, don't turn around, and whatever you do, don't let the darkness catch up to your headlights. My name is Adrian Cole, and this happened on the last weekend of October. People think darkness is just what happens when the sun goes down. They're wrong. Some places don't become dark because the light disappears. They become dark because something else arrives. My best friend, Liam Foster, had been obsessed with abandoned places for years. If the internet called a location cursed, haunted, or unexplained, he wanted to see it for himself. I was the complete opposite. I never believed in ghost stories, which is probably why I agreed to go. We left Portland early Saturday morning, planning to spend the weekend photographing waterfalls, forests, and mountain trails across the Cascade Range. It was the kind of trip we'd taken dozens of times before. Everything felt normal. We laughed, argued over music, stopped for coffee, and filled Liam's camera with hundreds of photos. By late afternoon, thick clouds rolled across the mountains, hiding the sun much earlier than expected. "We've got time for one more stop," Liam said. He showed me a photo he'd found online. It was a breathtaking overlook called Hollow Ridge. The caption underneath caught my attention. "Best view before sunset." Nothing else. No reviews, no comments, no location history, just one picture. It was strange, but not strange enough to stop us. The road leading to Hollow Ridge was old, narrow, and completely empty. We hadn't seen another car in almost 30 minutes. The farther we climbed, the quieter everything became. No birds, no insects, not even the sound of the wind. Only the soft hum of Liam's truck. "Ever notice how quiet forests get before a storm?" Liam asked. "Animals hide." He nodded. "Yeah. But this doesn't feel like that." I looked out the window. The trees weren't moving. Every branch stood perfectly still, as if the entire forest had frozen. Then we passed a weathered wooden sign. Mile 12. A few moments later, another sign appeared. Mile 13. The instant Liam's truck crossed it, every light went out. The headlights, the dashboard, the GPS, even the digital clock. The truck was still moving, but we were driving through absolute darkness. Not the kind of darkness you see at night. This was different. It felt heavy, like something was pressing against the windows from the outside. 3 seconds later, the headlights suddenly flashed back on. Liam slammed on the brakes. The truck stopped just inches from the edge of a cliff. Neither of us spoke. My hands were shaking. "What the hell was that?" I whispered. Liam looked down at his phone. The battery had dropped from 91% to 0%. Mine had too. Then, the GPS restarted by itself. Instead of loading the map, one sentence appeared across the screen. "The darkness saw you." Neither of us had time to react, because standing beside the Mile 13 sign was a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 8. She wore an old yellow raincoat. She wasn't crying. She wasn't asking for help. She was just standing there, smiling. Then she slowly raised one hand and pointed toward the forest behind us. I turned to look. There was nothing there. When I faced the road again, the little girl had disappeared. For a long moment, neither of us said a word. The little girl had vanished without making a sound. No footprints, no movement, nothing. Liam forced himself to laugh. Maybe she ran into the woods. I looked at the muddy shoulder beside the road. There aren't any footprints. His smile disappeared. Before either of us could say another word, the truck radio crackled to life. A little girl's voice echoed through the speakers. "You looked away." Then silence. Liam immediately unplugged the radio. It didn't matter. The voice came again. This time, from the back seat. "Now it knows you're here." We spun around. The back seat was empty. At that exact moment, the truck's headlights dimmed. Not because of the battery. Something was blocking the light. A shadow. It wasn't standing in front of the truck. It was swallowing the light itself. The beam reached the darkness and simply disappeared, like it had fallen into a bottomless hole. Liam's voice trembled. "Drive." I didn't argue. The engine started on the first try, and we sped down the mountain road. The GPS came back on by itself. It wasn't showing directions anymore. It was counting. 12, 11, 10. "What's it counting?" I asked. Neither of us knew. When it reached 1, every tree on both sides of the road became completely black. Not dark, black, as though all color had been drained from the forest. Then, people stepped out from between the trees. An old man, a teenage boy, a woman holding a baby, a park ranger, dozens of people, all perfectly still, all staring at the truck. Their faces looked pale, their eyes completely empty. Liam whispered, "Those are missing people." As we drove past them, not one of them moved, except the little girl. She was standing at the end of the line, still smiling. She slowly whispered, "Don't stop." The moment she said it, every other figure charged toward the road. Liam floored the gas pedal. The truck roared forward. The figures slammed against the sides of the vehicle, but none of them made a sound. No screams, no footsteps, only silence. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything disappeared. The road was empty again. A few minutes later, we reached the highway. Traffic, streetlights, people. It felt impossible that the nightmare had ended only moments earlier. The next day, we drove to the sheriff's office. We told them everything. The sheriff listened without interrupting. When we finished, he quietly opened an old case file. Inside were photographs of people who had disappeared near mile 13 over the past 50 years. Then, he placed one final photograph on the desk. It showed a family standing beside the exact mile 13 sign. A father, a mother, a little girl, wearing a yellow raincoat. "They disappeared in 1981, the sheriff said. "They were never found." I felt my stomach drop. "That's the girl we saw." The sheriff looked at me for several seconds. Then he said something I'll never forget. "No, you didn't see the girl. You saw what calls itself the girl." 6 months passed. Neither Liam nor I ever returned to the Cascade Mountains. Then, one rainy night, I received an email with no sender. It contained only one attachment, a photograph. It was taken from behind me. I was asleep in my own bedroom. Standing beside my bed was the little girl in the yellow raincoat, still smiling. At the bottom of the image, a single sentence had been typed. "Next October, don't turn off the lights." If you ever search for a house online, and the listing disappears the moment you refresh the page, don't try to find it. Because if you do, it means the house has already found you. My name is Ethan Cross, and until last fall, I worked as a freelance insurance inspector. My job was simple. Banks hired me to inspect abandoned homes before they were auctioned. I photographed the property, checked for damage, wrote a report, and left. Most houses were empty. Some were creepy. None of them scared me. Until I received an assignment that didn't officially exist. It arrived in my inbox at 6:42 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday. There was no company logo, no sender's name, just a property address in rural Vermont and one instruction. Inspection must be completed before sunset. The payment was unusually high, $8,000 for a job that normally paid less than $500. I assumed it was a mistake. Still, money like that wasn't easy to ignore. By noon, I was driving through the Green Mountains. The GPS worked perfectly until I reached a small town called Ashbrook. The moment I entered town, the address disappeared. Not from the GPS, from my email, from my downloads. Even the screenshot I'd saved on my phone had turned into a blank gray image. Only one thing remained: a handwritten note I'd copied onto a sticky pad before leaving home. I parked beside the town's only gas station. An elderly cashier looked at my note. The moment he read the address, the color drained from his face. "Where did you get this?" "It was sent to me." He slowly shook his head. "That house burned down in 1989. I think you've got the wrong address." He didn't answer. Instead, he quietly turned the closed sign around, even though it was only 2 in the afternoon. As I walked back to my SUV, I noticed something strange. Every person on the street was watching me. No one smiled. No one waved. It wasn't curiosity. It was pity. I followed the old paper map I'd bought at the gas station. The road narrowed until it became little more than gravel. After another 15 minutes, the trees opened. And there it was. A large Victorian house standing alone on top of a hill. White paint, black shutters, a wraparound porch. Not burned, not damaged. It looked occupied. Smoke drifted lazily from the chimney. A porch light glowed in the afternoon. Someone had recently swept the front steps. I checked the address nailed to the mailbox. It matched the one on my sticky note. A cold breeze passed behind me. When I turned around, the road I'd just driven up was gone. There was only forest. No tire tracks, no gravel, no way back. Then my phone vibrated. One new email. No sender, no subject. Only 6 words. "You're right on time, Mr. Cross." I looked up at the second-floor window. A curtain moved. Someone was looking down at me. I stood frozen, staring at the second-floor window. The curtain stopped moving. Whoever had been watching me was gone. I told myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe the house wasn't abandoned. Maybe the town records were wrong. I grabbed my camera, inspection clipboard, and walked toward the front porch. Before I could knock, the front door slowly opened by itself. "Hello?" No answer. The house smelled of old wood and fresh coffee. That was the first thing that felt wrong. If the place had really burned down in 1989, why did it smell lived in? The furniture was spotless. Family photographs covered the walls. A fireplace crackled quietly. Someone had even set the dining table for dinner. 4 plates, 4 glasses, 4 empty chairs. As I photographed the living room, my camera suddenly beeped. Motion detected. I looked around. Nothing. I checked the last photo. The room was empty, except for one detail. In the hallway mirror behind me, a man was standing only a few feet away, wearing a gray suit, hands folded, watching me. I spun around. The hallway was empty. I looked back at the camera screen. The man was still there, smiling. My phone buzzed. Another email. "Please inspect the upstairs bedroom." My stomach tightened. I had never told anyone I was inside. I climbed the stairs. The second floor looked untouched. At the end of the hallway was a single closed door. As I reached for the handle, I heard voices inside. A family laughing. A little girl asking her father to read another bedtime story. The sounds were so clear. It felt wrong to interrupt. I slowly opened the door. Silence. The room was empty. Dust floated through the sunlight. No furniture, no people. Just one wooden desk. On it sat an inspection report. My inspection report. It had today's date, my name, my employee ID. Everything was correct, except it had already been signed. At the bottom, under inspector status, it read, "Missing." My heartbeat exploded. I stumbled backward. The front door downstairs slammed shut. Every light in the house went out. Not one by one, all at once. My flashlight barely cut through the darkness. Then I heard footsteps, slow, measured, coming up the stairs. Not chasing me, approaching. I backed into the bedroom and locked the door. The footsteps stopped outside. 3 quiet knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Then a calm voice spoke through the wood. "Mr. Cross, your inspection is complete." The doorknob slowly turned. The old lock gave way. I jumped through the bedroom window. Branches tore at my jacket as I rolled down the hill. I didn't stop running until I reached the highway. When I looked back, the hill was empty. There was no house, only a field covered with blackened stone foundations. The next morning, I called the bank that had supposedly hired me. The manager sounded confused. "We've never sent anyone to that address." I checked my inbox. Every email about the job had vanished. The payment never arrived. A month later, I filed a public records request. A week later, I received one thin envelope. Inside was a newspaper clipping from October 1989. The headline read, "Insurance Inspector Missing During Fire Investigation." Beneath it was a photograph. A young man stood in front of the burning house. He was holding a clipboard. He looked terrified. I recognized the face immediately. It was mine. Not someone who looked like me. Me. The photo had been taken 37 years before I was born. I never accepted another inspection job. But every October, at exactly 6:42 a.m., a new email appears in my inbox. No sender, no subject, just one line. Your follow-up inspection is overdue. If you're ever driving across the Nevada desert and your GPS suddenly tells you to take exit 47, ignore it. Because there's no exit 47 on any official map. And if you take it anyway, don't expect anyone to remember you when you come back. My name is Noah Bennett, and for the past 5 years, I've worked as a long-haul truck driver. I've crossed almost every highway in America. Snowstorms in Colorado, flash floods in Texas, blizzards in Montana. I've driven through places so isolated that I didn't see another vehicle for hours. But nothing compares to what happened on Highway 95. It was just after midnight when I left Las Vegas with a trailer full of construction equipment bound for northern Nevada. The highway stretched endlessly through the desert. No towns, no gas stations, just darkness and miles of empty road. Around 1:18 a.m., my GPS made a soft chime. Take exit 47 in 1 mile. I frowned. I'd driven this route dozens of times. There was no exit 47. I glanced at the highway signs. Exit 46, then nothing. A mile later, an exit appeared. Fresh asphalt, new guardrails, a bright green sign. Exit 47, Ash Creek. I slowed down. I'd never seen that exit before. Curious, I pulled off the highway. The road was surprisingly smooth, as if it had been built only weeks earlier. 5 minutes later, the desert disappeared. A small town appeared ahead. Streetlights glowed softly. A grocery store, a diner, a church with its bell tower lit against the night sky. Everything looked normal. Too normal. There wasn't a single person outside. Not one parked car had dust on it. Every storefront was open, yet the streets were completely empty. I stopped beside an old diner. A handwritten sign in the window read, "Open 24 hours." Inside, a waitress stood behind the counter. She smiled as I walked in. "You must be Noah." My heart skipped a beat. Have we met?" She shook her head. "No. We've just been expecting you." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. I had never told anyone my route. I hadn't even called dispatch. "How do you know my name?" She ignored the question. Instead, she poured a cup of black coffee and slid it toward me. "You should leave before sunrise." Her smile disappeared. "Nobody who stays after sunrise ever leaves." Before I could respond, the lights flickered. Every clock inside the diner stopped. Exactly 1:23 a.m. The waitress slowly looked toward the window. Her face turned pale. "They're early." I followed her gaze. Outside, every streetlight had gone out. The town was swallowed by darkness, except hundreds of porch lights were turning on, one by one, as if every house had just been occupied. But no one had opened a door. No one had stepped outside. Then I noticed something impossible. People were standing behind the windows, every single house, perfectly still, watching the diner, watching me. The waitress whispered without taking her eyes off the window, "Don't let them see you looking back." I slowly lowered my head, but it was already too late, because someone knocked on the diner's front door. Knock, knock, knock. The waitress closed her eyes. Then, in a trembling voice, she said, "They know you're real now." No one moved. The 3 knocks echoed through the diner. Knock, knock, knock. The waitress slowly reached beneath the counter and turned off the neon "open" sign. The diner fell into complete silence. Then, someone tried the front door handle. It didn't rattle. It turned, slowly, as if whoever was outside already knew the door wasn't locked. The waitress whispered, "Don't speak. Don't answer. And whatever happens, don't tell them your name." The door opened. A middle-aged man stepped inside. He looked completely ordinary. Blue jeans, brown jacket, work boots covered in desert dust. He smiled politely. "Evening." Neither of us replied. His eyes settled on me. "You must be new." Before I could stop myself, I nodded. The waitress quietly closed her eyes. The man's smile grew wider. "I remember my first night here." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean, here?" He looked confused. "You don't know?" "I've lived in Ash Creek for 17 years. But I can't remember where I lived before." He said it so casually, as if forgetting an entire life was normal. More footsteps approached the diner. Another woman entered. Then an elderly couple. Then a teenage boy. Within seconds, the diner was full. Every person smiled at me. Every person asked the same question. "Are you staying until sunrise?" I backed toward the kitchen. The waitress grabbed my arm. "They're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to keep you." She pulled open a rear door. "Run to your truck. And don't stop for anyone." I sprinted into the alley. The entire town was awake now. People stood on sidewalks, in front yards, at bus stops, not moving, just watching. None of them blinked. I reached my truck and slammed the door shut. The engine started immediately. I floored the accelerator toward the highway. The GPS came alive. Recalculating. Instead of showing Highway 95, it displayed only one destination. Home. Distance remaining. Unknown. The road out of town should have taken 5 minutes. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. The same church. The same gas station. The same diner. Every road led back to the center of Ash Creek. I was trapped. Then my CB radio crackled. A familiar voice. It was my dispatcher. "Noah, where are you?" Relief flooded through me. "I'm stuck in a town called Ash Creek." Silence. Ash, what? Ash Creek, exit 47. Another pause. Then he laughed nervously. Buddy, there isn't an exit 47 on Highway 95. At that moment, the GPS screen went black. One sentence appeared. You've already been replaced. My phone rang. It was my younger sister. I answered immediately. Emily, thank God. I'm sorry. Who is this? My heart stopped. It's Noah. Long silence. I don't know anyone named Noah. The call ended. I tried my parents, my best friend, my boss. Every answer was the same. They didn't know me. It was as if I'd never existed. As dawn approached, the desert sky slowly turned orange. The waitress's warning echoed in my mind. Nobody who stays after sunrise ever leaves. I slammed my fist against the steering wheel. Then I noticed something I'd missed before. A narrow dirt road behind the old church. No road sign, no markings, just tire tracks leading into the desert. I took the chance. The truck bounced violently across the uneven ground. Behind me, the town's church bell began ringing. Once, twice. Then, without warning, every person in Ash Creek stepped into the street. Hundreds of them. None of them ran. None of them shouted. They simply stood there, watching me drive away. 10 minutes later, the dirt road connected to Highway 95. The exit was gone. There was no sign, no road, only empty desert. When I reached the nearest truck stop, I rushed inside. The cashier looked at me strangely. You okay? I nodded. Then I asked the question that had haunted me all morning. What day is it? He checked the calendar behind the register. It's October 14th. My blood ran cold. I had entered Ash Creek on October 13th. According to my truck's logbook, I hadn't been gone one night. I'd been missing for exactly 1 year. I quit trucking that winter, but every October 13th, a plain white postcard arrives in my mailbox. No stamp, no return address. On the front is a photograph of the diner. If I turn it over, there's always the same handwritten message. A table is still waiting for you, Noah.